Hello, hello. Welcome to the Board Game Design Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Dunstan. Welcome to the final episode of the Board Game Variety Hour for 2020. I'm sure we're all happy to see the end of the year in some ways. And also, I haven't seen you all since Christmas, so very Merry Christmas to everyone who's watching. Hi, Nicholas. How you going? Hey, Alex. Welcome. Yeah. Decided to. I don't always have the tree behind me, but thought it might it's appropriate this time. Hey, Rory, how you going? Welcome. How was everyone's Christmas and I guess break since then? If you've been able to have a bit of a break for a few days since Christmas, things were pretty well. Hey, Robert, how you going? Yeah, here it was pretty chilled out. Thankfully, we were able to visit my partner's parents and family for Christmas and Christmas Eve. So we ate the traditional carp and potato salad on Christmas Eve night. We have our carp scales now, so we'll be assured to be rich in the coming day, or the coming year rather. Can't lose that. You need to keep it in your wallet to make sure that you'll be wealthy in the coming year. And eaten an inordinate amount of like small Christmas cookies and things like that. So it was a very, very nice time, and even got to play a few games. Introduced both of Tree's parents and brother to Point Salad, and we played some No Thanks as well, which was quite fun. So yeah, all in all, a nice few days. Yes, that is the pretty much everybody in the Czech Republic on Christmas Eve will eat carp and potato salad. That's the standard dish, the traditional dish that everyone will do, and a lot of most people will buy carp live. They'll have big tanks on the various on lots of different corners just on the street, and people will pick out their carp and either take it home live or it will be butchered there for them to take home later. So yeah, hey bro, how you going? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Alex introduced my children to Similar, quite a fun little clue giving game. Yeah, I saw it. It's like from the Horrible Guild, right? I think where you have a series of characters and then you're trying to give some series of clues and you have to eliminate a certain number of characters at each step, and you're hoping to end up with the one character that you've been trying to give clues to, if I'm right. Looks like a really cute little concept, and there's like lots of different sets, I think, with different themes that you can try. I think I saw one with fairy tale characters, or I just remember that Alice in Wonderland or something like that. So yeah, sounds like it. So yeah, no, it sounds like a cute little game. So yeah, well, I'm glad that went well. You got the fairy tale one, yeah. Probably a pretty suitable one for children, I would say. So yeah, but of course, coming up with concepts like that is great because you can, if it does well, you can just make more and more products with different themes. Something like Timeline is also another sort of classic example of being able to kind of spin out a concept to many different products, which is really great. Yeah, you also can see this also kind of traditional Czech Republic thing is you have you put gingerbread, various iced gingerbread cookies on your Christmas tree. And I thought the dried oranges was a Czech thing, but it may just be specifically my girlfriend and her family thing. Nicholas said my take is co-op Guess Who. Oh, on Similar. Yeah. That's actually probably a pretty good comparison. So yeah, I've been enjoying a little bit of. I've been surprised how many people have still been streaming kind of over the holidays. So it's been nice to sort of drop in a few of Bez's streams. Paul Grogan, both doing fighting fantasy adventure game books actually, which must be sort of on trend at the moment. So yeah, and there was a really cool stream last week with Ross from All Games Please, who was doing the adventure games, the dungeon one. We did the first part of that, which was a lot of fun, and we were sort of helping to raise some money for charity. I was sort of dropping cryptic hints in the chat from time to time. So yeah, it's been a good few days. And yeah, well, this being the last stream of the year, I mean, not that I've been streaming that long, but is going to be the sort of second half of the recap of 2020. And I realized that in the last stream, which was supposed to also be a recap or a look back on 2020, I probably focused more on games that I'd played rather than like kind of as a game designer, or the kind of like sort of nuts and bolts of it, I guess. So I am way more prepared this time. I even dipped back into my training I suppose maybe my comfort zone as a scientist is to make a PowerPoint presentation. So I actually have a presentation prepared. I'll try and I'll try and keep everything as relaxed as possible. But in some ways, it always helps me not to forget anything. And it's better than looking at my mug for an hour. So maybe it'll provide something more interesting to look at. Hey, David, how you going? Welcome. Yeah, no, I like them too. I'm very lucky. Actually, Teresa did most of them, I have to admit. I dabbled and helped a little bit. Alex says lots of top 10s of 2020 coming out. Seen Monumental quite a few. Yeah, no, thanks for that, Alex. Yeah, no, that's been it's been really nice actually. And one of the things I'll get onto is kind of sort of positive things looking back, and I think one of them definitely is how well, firstly, the Monumental was sort of received by backers this year. And that generally it seems to have been, got a good reception, and that a lot of players have really enjoyed it. And I think that's all you can kind of help, ask for, really. No worries, Nicola. Take care. Enjoy. I hope your family's well. Enjoy your time with them. Merry Christmas. Thanks again. Yeah. So no, that's definitely a positive looking back on the year. So yeah, I guess let's dive into it. There's not much else in terms of news, or there's nothing in particular I sort of read or links that I would sort of be doing. But as always, if you've got any questions or things you'd want me to chat about, or as I'm sort of, reminiscing over the year, do let me know if there's something you'd want like more of an explanation of, or have questions around. Just pop them into the chat. I should also say that it's a bit of a weird experience. I'm trying to, I suppose the intention is to give as full a picture of what it's like to be, a reasonably full-time game designer almost. But I'm not trying to brag. So, some of this might come off as like, oh gosh, he's just talking about, he's got 4 games released and he's got these coming. It's that's not the intention. So please, I'm trying to keep it lighthearted, and I hope it won't come off that way. It's certainly not the intention just to brag about how amazing I am, because no. But at the same time, I think if I'm not going to look back and enjoy the high points and some nice parts of the year, then when am I? And I'm hoping that you'll all humor me, but I'm hoping also that it will be ultimately kind of useful, or a useful kind of snapshot for folks who are interested in getting design, or just, I suppose, just understanding, what is the kind of like, again, what is the life of game designer is like. And that's kind of what I want these streams to be. So I should also, the other kind of preface to that is I think one of the main things that I enjoyed is Arnold Rauer, who is Tiny Touch Tales, who I will probably mention later because we're collaborating. He was probably one of the people I first started. He would write a yearly blog, which was a blog post which was looking back on his year, and he would try and be very very open about things. He would be open about finances, for example. How much money had he made off his games in that year? He would talk about various design things that he'd worked on, various projects that either had come to fruition or not. And I liked how open it was, and it was, I think it was very interesting. And so a bit of a shout out to Arnold. And also he himself will be actually live streaming his own recap of the year, and I think he's also going to produce the normal blog post as well. I'm just going to find to shout him out in chat. So that's going to be it's going to be on the 30th of December, so in 2 days at 8 p.m. Central European time. And I'm just trying to find the link. Let's see if I can put it in here. Yeah, so this is Arnold's Twitch. So give him a follow if you haven't already, and if you're around in a couple of nights. I think for someone that, I think Arnold makes the most kind of board game adjacent digital games. So I think it'll be super interesting if you're in the board game space. And Arnold's a really fun guy to chat to, and I'm very much looking forward to the stream. So a big shout out to Arnold. And also kind of as an inspiration for trying to do this, because I don't see so many people in the board game world kind of doing this. So yeah, let's see. Let's go. So let's look at what I've got. Okay, recap of 2020, and admire my amazing ability to make slides here. I recently got the new version of PowerPoint, or like PowerPoint, whatever it is, like Office 365, after being on a sort of positively ancient version of Office, which I think from like 2011 for a very, very long time. And it does all these, like, it suggests slide layouts and fancy designs and things, which I partook in a little bit. So hopefully it's not too much of an eyesore, but but yeah, so it looks snazzier than it would normally possibly. But anyhow, so without that, let's go. Can I click on it? Yeah. So I mean, the first thing is to look back a little bit in releases this year. And I mean, it was a bit of a slower year of releases. Obviously, the year being what it was meant that a lot of projects were delayed or pushed back that maybe were going to be released this year. And I've talked on the stream about the adventure games quite a bit. So the fourth entry in that line, Grand Hotel Baden, came out in Germany in the middle of the year or around September time. And it's actually already, I think, had a pretty good reception. I think Phil and we were kind of, I might have talked about it before, but, we're trying to kind of put, along with Cosmos, trying to really refine what we think are the core parts of the adventure game series. And in a way, you kind of need to do a few of them first to kind of work. You have to throw a lot of things at the wall, and then you get a better sense as you're going what are the best things about the series or not. Yeah, and I feel like Grand Hotel Baden is like adventure games 2.0 almost. It's like a good reset. I think it'll actually be it'll be a really good one for people to be introduced to the series. Actually, it's a good family kind of thing, good for children, and not too complex. But I think there's a few new things that we did in Grand Hotel Baden, for example, with like non-player characters, which look like they're going to be quite standard now in future kind of scenarios. So I think we did a lot of really great things with that, and it seems to have been received quite well. There are not many English reviews necessarily, so that will hopefully come out in English next year. And the other thing is Volcanic Island, the third one, was released in English, which for me is nice because now I can play it with people and enjoy that. So that was also a really, really nice thing. Monumental also, I mean, it was kickstarted last year, but people actually received it this year. Backers received it, so that was also a nice highlight. And I also got this Diamond, the board game, which was a sort of a project with the Diamond Light Source. So it's a synchrotron based in the UK. I worked with some of the scientists there to make a board game with them to try and educate school children, students about what's it like to be a scientist at a facility like this, like kind of world-class facility, and what types of science you do there. And I think it was also quite successful. I think we've had, kind of in the thousands of downloads sort of number, which is really great. And we were able to kind of pivot to making it a free print and play version of the game. Once we knew that, it was going to be hard to meet with other people necessarily, or that also the schools would start to be closed. So we needed a way to sort of get it to the people who it was intended for in a different way. And I think it worked really well. And we're still hoping that it will be released in kind of a physical version, a boxed version in the future. And we've got some funding to do that, thankfully. So yeah, it's in a way like not a huge output. I mean, I like to think it's hopefully quality that is there, but I think there's looking hopefully in the future, in the years to come, a lot of those projects that were pushed back will start coming out. And but no, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with how all these processes worked out, and actually also the experience of working with these publishers continues to be. I've worked with FunForge, with Monumental. We had Professor Evil and Sid all the time before. So they're sort of publishers which, I've got to know over the years, actually, and I've known, Cosmos. We've also released a game with them before, All for Adventure, and Fußball Jewel, which was kind of a soccer football kind of 2-player game that was only available in German. So like, it's nice to work with publishers that you know well and you have a really good working relationship with, and actually in the case of both the adventure games and Monumental, like these are going to be lines that will continue into the coming years, which is really, really nice. Alex says, I think most people have an idea of what scientists do, but I'm sure there are more spreadsheets than they'd imagine. Yes, I wonder how many jobs can be described that way, that there are more spreadsheets than you would imagine in this job. Yeah, it's interesting, actually, because, you know, it links into the wider kind of point of STEM education, and just, I think, also giving students a feeling that they can be a scientist, you know, and yeah, exactly. The question, what exactly is this stereotypical idea of a scientist? And actually, the nice thing in the game is I think there's 8 different scientific kind of characters that you can be, and it, as you know, ranges from like astrobiologist, marine botanist, materials chemist, art kind of historian, archaeologist. You know, because that's a huge breadth of work that gets done at Diamond. You know, I think some of the, for example, like you wouldn't think that, for example, art historians or archaeologists are you know, a big, you know, a significant user of the synchrotron or one of the particular beam lines. They're trying to essentially, they use different non-destructive techniques to look at, you know, that can look at you know, essentially image different parts of artifacts without destroying them, or see images beyond what might be on the surface or things like that. So yeah, there's a really wide range of things, and the other kind of cool thing in the game, which I was really glad about. I mean, that's kind of my contribution. I mean, I've also been a user at the Light Source, so that helped. But you know, I was sort of brought on as the game designer in a way. Although the other 2 scientists I work with also play games a lot, and they made a lot of contributions. But what I like is that we came up with an experience that actually, in the way you play the game, it actually captures a little bit of what it's like to do an experiment, that, you know, that it's okay to fail, that you do fail. So there's a bit of a push your luck element in the game where you're flipping cards from this experiment deck, and they're either successes or failures, and you want lots of successes, and you can just keep flipping as much as you want. But if you flip 2 failure cards, then it's a failure and you kind of lose half of your successes. And in a way, that's a little bit exactly how science is. I think often in kind of popular culture, you see the scientists, you know, you're always making these kind of breakthroughs, or that you're doing amazing experiments and you're understanding the world, and you have these amazing insights and things. But it often leaves out that preceding a lot of that is a lot of failure, a lot of things that don't work. And it could be years where something doesn't work, and then maybe you finally get a result. And actually, sometimes you might never get a result, you know, or you won't be the person who actually makes that breakthrough. So actually, hopefully, we got a little bit of that in game, and it showed, because we've actually we're in the process of publishing a few scientific articles outlining the process we did to design the game, and also evaluated how does that change their perceptions of what is it to be a scientist. And one of the things was that failure is okay. Actually, it seemed to really get through the students. So that was really cool, and it was a sort of a different project, and certainly going forward, it's something I hope I can still be involved with, these kind of collaborations, which are not strictly in the kind of hobby game space, where you kind of get to work, you know, with people of different kind of backgrounds and different disciplines, I guess. And so I'm also involved in this sort of film game project with the film museum here in Prague, which is also another kind of cool aspect of that. Yeah, so I mean, great. You know, it's amongst all everything that's 2020. You know, obviously, I should not forget that you know, three really great, you know, published games and 1 great print play. So that was really nice. Like, so that's interesting. I've heard some people think there's a bit of a publishing bias where only successful experiments research are published. You've hit on exactly a very, very interesting point, because this is actually one area that in my own personal research right now is actually heading in some small way to try and help this. And you're absolutely right. There was a really interesting paper a couple of years ago where somebody actually went back in a sort of major lab and went through all the old lab books. So when you're a scientist, you have a lab book, which is literally a paper notebook where you write all the details of your experiments, and you write everything. They're usually very detailed summaries of all the experiments that you do, whether they're successful or not. And this person went back through, I think, about 10 years of lab books, because also once you leave the lab, your lab book stays there. It's sort of the property of the lab rather than the person. So they went back through all these old lab books and sort of, extracted all the information of all the experiments they've done, whether they produced, because they were in this particular lab, they were synthesizing new materials. And sometimes that would be successful. You would get a new material. Sometimes it wouldn't. You wouldn't get anything. And they actually were able to, because they extracted all the information, because not just the successful ones, because you're right, it's very hard to publish a paper saying, we tried all this stuff and none of it worked. So because, in the literature, when people look for things, when you start something new, you look at what worked before. But yes, exactly. It's only reporting usually what did work. It doesn't report what didn't work. But this person got all these details, including the things that didn't work, and did some extra analysis and actually got found new insights that that could only be made by also considering all the things that had failed. And what I'm really interested in now is looking at different systems to help labs sort of capture this information in a digital way, because we can't rely on somebody to look through, a lab book. And also machine learning and AI and these sort of approaches have become very popular in materials chemistry, a lot of other fields as well, of course, and they need digital inputs. So it's sort of digitalizing science, but it's helping scientists right now to digitalize their work, not necessarily just about going back on what's been. So yeah, it's a really important problem. It's weirdly a difficult problem to get money for sometimes, or get people interested. It's sort of one of those things that everyone, when they hear about it, it's like, yeah, that's a great idea, but it's not very, dare I say, sexy. It's not the thing that gets the big grant because it sounds amazing, but it's so important in terms of, recording information, helping to share it with other people, make it open, make it reusable. These are all like things that I am very interested in. I'm also, working in various ways. It's scraping information from literature, essentially. So, I have a colleague who says in science, we're in the process almost of information destruction, because you do an experiment and you do all your analysis, and all of that in the end is printed in a paper. And most of the ways that people interact with a scientific paper nowadays is a PDF. And you might have one plot in that PDF, which was maybe the subject of like a year's worth of experiments. But of course, like you've sort of destroyed information at each step. At each point of analysis, you're sort of reducing the kind of accuracy in which you're kind of recording that. And in the end, you're left with a figure in a PDF, which might be a JPEG that, no computer can read, and you couldn't reproduce that. You can't get that information from that. And so we're looking at different ways to kind of get that information back out. So sorry, whoa off the recap in 2020, but this is turned into the science and games stream. But yeah, it's really interesting, and yeah, I definitely could talk a lot more about it. So all right, great, games released, huzzah. No, don't be sorry, Alex. I'm glad. Well, I hope it's interesting. It might just be you and me chatting by the end of this, But I'm always really happy to hear about it. The other kind of cool thing this year was there was a successful Kickstarter for the expansion for Monumental African Empires, and I'm really thankful to all the people who supported the project. We're really lucky in a way that again, you just sort of it's funny looking back on the year, because obviously there's a lot of misfortune and poor luck in the year for a lot of people. But for some reason, we were quite fortunate with Monumental that we kind of got all the shipping done just before kind of lockdowns hit. Most of the backers could receive things. They might not have been able to play the game, or at least a non-solo version of the game while they're in lockdown, but at least they had it, which really helped when we, because we'd always planned to kickstart the new expansion this year, and it would have been much more difficult had there'd been difficult boxes trapped in China, or that we couldn't have shipped things. So that was really fortunate. It allowed us to run a Kickstarter, and it was a bit of an exciting campaign. We had some stumbles at the start, as Kickstarter campaigns are always lots of fun. I can tell you. But in the end, really raised quite a bit of money, and huge thanks to everyone who backed the expansion. It's a game I hope that will continue to have life going on in future years, and this is kind of the model that will be for Monumental. So as long as these can keep being successful, then hopefully I can keep making expansions, which I definitely want to do. So even though, it's funny putting together these things for these kind of recaps, you remember actually, incredible good fortune that you've had in the year that you might not be remembering right now. So yeah, that was kind of in the middle of the year roughly that the Kickstarter run, I think, or even like March, April. I'd have to look up exactly when. Welcome also everybody who's just tuned in, or I'm Matthew Dunstan, if you don't know, but I'm sort of recapping my year in design slowly, and trying to give a bit of insight into what it's like being a designer. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat if you've got anything else I'm going along. And the caveat is I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to give kind of an open and honest account of all the things that have happened. And I'm very, very thankful for it. So, yeah, and thank you for indulging me, I guess. Yeah, and yeah, I guess the other kind of cool thing this year was that there are actually quite a few games that were announced to be released, and these are hopefully quite soon. In that, because in most cases, final art has been announced. Rules have gone up in some cases for games. Definitely, I know a lot of these games are in production, so it's likely that these games will be released. I hope as much as anyone can hope. Early next year, or will be kickstarted very early in 2021. So that was also really, really great. So Crafty asked, I'd love to hear about various mechanisms that you think are winners. Do you mean in my own games, or do you mean just generally, like looking back on 2020? Okay, I'm very new to the world of board games and hobby. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I mean, I would say right now, in my own games. Okay, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how much mechanisms are the thing that I would point to that just like makes the game a winner. I mean, like of course it has to be something fun and that I enjoy and that I'm happy with what I design. But when I kind of look back on what has done well for me or not, I don't know if it always correlates with, like the success of a game doesn't correlate necessarily with the mechanisms. There's all these different kind of factors that go into things. For Monumental, for example, like one of the main things is it has this new take on deck building, and I think that was quite successful. A lot of people have commented on that. That's a really cool part. So a deck building game, if you haven't played it, is sort of started by Dominion, although there were kind of parts of it before where you have a deck of cards and you're adding new cards to that deck and you go through that deck several times throughout a game. And in Monumental, instead of just having a hand of cards that you kind of play from, you kind of almost have an open hand because you have a 3x3 grid of cards in front of you and you choose a row and column to use each round. And that's the kind of twist. And then you're using those cards to acquire new cards, get points, etc. And I think that I'm really quite proud of that mechanism. I think it's a really fun puzzle. It's an evolving kind of puzzle, and it fits. I think I've talked before on the stream about that having some of the mechanisms or best games are where you sort of take like you do it like a 20% new and 80% familiar, and I think Monumental does that. It has that little bit of newness with this grid and that twist, and then some familiarity, which I think has been a good combination for the game. So yeah, I'd say that's one thing. I think the other thing is narrative games generally. I think are doing very, very well at the moment. I think they're a lot of work, and that's why maybe we don't see as many coming out. But I feel like there's still a lot of room in the kind of board game space for new narrative games and new takes on that kind of genre and like mystery games. And I'm certainly making, I think that's why adventure games have done well, certainly, and I've got more projects in that kind of space. So I think that's where, and the kind of trick of that was it's not really about mechanisms. It is about finding kind of a simple mechanism that just doesn't get in the way of telling the story, of experiencing the story, and making fun choices. So that's kind of what I would say. Hey Jay, how you going? Welcome. Yeah, so yeah, I hope that answered. The only other thing I would sort of say right now that I'm really quite not obsessed with, I guess, are kind of bingo-ish style games. I think these are like really. I hope there'll be a game that's not on this slide that will be released next year that Brett and I have designed in this space. They're games where kind of people all take turns at the same time, usually, and it's kind of the same roll and write kind of DNA where roll and writes are kind of also kind of bingo games in a way. Like something is rolled or there's some result and everybody like interprets that in a different way and writes down in their sheet or yeah. Oh yes, yeah. I'm talking about roll and writes now. Yeah. So I have this one over here, which you can't really see, is a Dice Hospital roll and write, which I guess is sort of the first. Yeah, actually, probably is the first roll and write I have designed or that will be published. And there is going to be the game I signed last, a couple of weeks ago is a flip and write as well. So I'm working in a little bit of space, but not just roll and writes, but I think games which have that kind of ability to have simultaneous play, have simple rules. I think there's a lot of I think roll and writes for me, the success of Roll and Rights isn't just about the form of them, that it was, rolling dice and writing. I think the writing part, certainly. But I think they're built on a style of game which I think is doing very well right now, which is where people are not, in a family, kind of a like more relaxed family gaming setting. People aren't worried about, being in direct competition with each other. They want to kind of build something and having just that little bit of randomness that's giving them a little bit of excitement from this kind of random input. In this case, rolling the dice and a roll and write, for example. But there are other games, like AEG's done things like Tiny Towns, for example, which I think is another really great example of this kind of game. Yeah, and as Alex said, for 2020 for remote play, also these kind of games are really, really great. I think that space is, it's not something new. I think, there's lots of games going through, like Machikoro, for example, is another instance. And Settlers of Catan, in a way, could be argued that it has an element of that with when you roll the dice, everyone's kind of simultaneously like interacting with that part. And it's something that I certainly want to keep designing for. It's sort of like, for me, it's the hardest nut to crack because I know where I want to go, but I don't necessarily, there's so many different ways you can do it. And I think that's quite exciting. And I think I like those style of games. And I think looking at how well Roll and Rights have done and have done really cool things, there's lots of different ways to push that. I think if you go beyond it having to be a roll and write, you can still take the benefits of that genre, this idea of playing simultaneously, of having these kind of random inputs, of having relatively simple games. And of course, the other nice thing about them is that there's usually not much in the information. So, in a family setting, you see a lot of times, or with someone who's not so familiar with games, even the concept of having cards in their hand can be tricky because that's information that you have to interpret, ideally without telling the other players what's in your hand. But games where you don't have to do that, where one player can help another player, essentially like, I can see what you could do, so let me help you, or let me, give advice, or you can ask questions without kind of feeling like you're kind of ruining the game. I think those are real benefits, and I think they help grow the hobby. They help grow who is interested in playing games. And I think narrative games and roll and writes, all these kind of simultaneous plays games, operate in that same space, is that I think they're opening up more and more people who are interested in playing games because, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. What does it mean if I have the princess? So, so crafty to see in response to the game Love Letter, which is an amazing micro game. And it was the game that started the micro game craze. It's only 18 cards, 16 cards. I can't quite remember. But it is so simple, but it still has, everyone has one card in hand. You draw one and you have two, and then you play one. But it requires you to understand what those cards do. And that's actually in Love Letter, it's very important that you just, because sometimes if someone else does something, you need to do something kind of without being told to do it. So again, it's a very simple game and also very popular, but it's still, it has that problem. So I think, yeah, again, like narrative and cooperative games also feature in that. So yeah, I think those are some interesting kind of mechanisms I myself am trying to work with, and I think going forward, I think it could be very important. So with these new games, and actually with the games that were released this year, I wanted to kind of lift the curtain a little bit to make it seem slightly less like I'm just bragging, and I guess go into a little bit about just how much time it goes into these games, because spoiler, later on I'm going to talk a little bit about money and income, which is always a bit of an awkward thing to talk about. But I think actually, being a game designer is realizing just how long these things actually kind of take. Yeah, it's a bit of the process behind it. I think I was imagining in future streams that maybe in a particular stream I'll focus on a single game and kind of go into the story of it and how I designed it and the kind of stories from publishing and all those sort of things. But for now, this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of these particular games and the ones that were released this year. So, yeah, how long did these games take to get here? So, for example, Monumental. It is one of really old design actually for me. I look back in my notes and I started in 2012, November, late 2012, designing a game. I can actually remember quite clearly writing things in my notes because I go back to Australia during this time. I went back to Australia every 2 years, roughly around Christmas, and I went home Christmas 2012. And I remember sort of working on this idea while I was back in Australia, and so yeah, that's kind of where the game started. Now, of course, that's not to say that the finished product, necessarily resembled my first thoughts, but my thoughts about having kind of a civilization deck building game. For a while, I really would have loved to get the Fantasy Flight, Civilization license, and I was imagining you could have an amazing LCG. I still kind of think that an LCG, like a Civilization LCG, could be really cool. I mean, I don't. If FFG is listening, give me a call. I have some ideas. But so it started a really long time ago. And actually, the process of designing the game took a really long time. I mean, it's partly to do because this was a solo design. Most of my designs are with other people, and they tend to go a bit more quickly when I'm working with somebody else. But this one also had lots of ups and downs. It took me a while to get to that mechanism of the grid mechanism. Like, I knew I wanted to do something interesting with deck building. Strangely enough, it was inspired by Innovation, which is a game by Carl Chudik, which I really, really love. And that has kind of icons that you're lining up cards, and it's a weird thing because when you look at the two games now, you sort of say, how are they even related? But I was trying to get this idea of lining up symbols in different ways. Anyway, Alex asked, did the game change much after you started pitching it? Yeah, so I'll get to that. Yeah, so I started pitching it in October 2015, and I pitched it to 9 different companies over 2.5 years. Actually, this is this is like I'm starting with probably the most kind of epic tale, because spoiler, this is the longest kind of time from idea to publication of any of these games. But it was with a couple of companies for a long time. They were kind of thinking about it. We didn't sign any contracts though. They weren't sort of sure. And then, I signed up to FunForge in 2017. And that's still a long time before it was kickstarted in 2019. That's like 2 years, which is quite a while. And it did change quite a bit. It originally was only a card game. There wasn't a map, which you had territories. There was a different way that you did military in the game. And FunForge had this kind of vision for the game. They had a much sort of grander vision, kind of to fit the Civilization theme, and also to kind of fit what they could see the product being, the kind of the art design and the graphics and all these sort of things. And so that actually took a lot of time. That's one reason really why it took 2 years, is that I did have to do a lot of work with FunForge, helping as well, changing the game from this sort of card only game to Monumental, which has miniatures and a big map and all these sort of things now. Although who knows what we'll see in the future that may or may not resemble the original game. So that's kind of the kind of story in a bottle for Monumental. But so like 7.5 years. When I sort of show a little bit about like income from these games, like just keep in the back of your head, like that represents obviously not 7.5 years of full-time work, but it's something that was with me for a very long time. And of course, across that whole time, you don't see any income. You're working on the game. It was a monumental journey. I think I probably put some sort of pun in the rule book, I think, when I was thanking people about a monumental journey. But and of course, as you can see, my typical very code names for by code name, I mean this was just a title I would give to the game. I don't have code names to talk about games generally, but you could tell it's very, very Civilization deck building game. I just wanted to say what was on the tin and make sure everybody understood that, I guess. The next one are the adventure games, and this kind of looking at the adventure games as an overall thing. And this is actually, I've sort of gone from the most extreme 7.5 years to this, which actually is probably the quickest of any game I've ever had. Phil and I started designing it when I was back in Sydney, again, my sort of once every couple of years, at the end of 2017. We only had a few meetings. I was only back in Australia for a month, and we met, I think, twice during that time, where we kind of got the initial concepts together, and Phil did quite a bit of work with the first prototype. Interestingly enough, actually, the prototype that I pitched is actually quite different in a way to this game. And in the back of my head, I wonder if I will still work on a product like that. In short, you had a kind of action cards that you would play different places. In fact, there's another game called Coded Chronicles by Senfong Lim, and I think it's Jay Cormier. I'm just guessing Sen's normal design partner. It might be someone else. They had a Scooby-Doo one come out this year, and there's a Shining version of it. No problem, Zaid. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's we're going. So so far, the recap is I'm very thankful. I've sort of talked about the games that were released this year. I'm lucky that it had a successful Kickstarter, and just chatting about games that were announced that hopefully will come out later. But we're sort of diving briefly into each design to give a bit of an idea of just how long these things take and a few sort of anecdotal points, I guess. The plan is still in the future to do kind of deep dives into a single design in the stream. That's definitely something I'll do in the future. So yeah, this is kind of like the 5-minute version of a future stream, but just to give an idea of how long these things take. And you missed the longest one. We just did Monumental, which was the longest probably of any game I've ever had from idea to publication at about 7.5 years. So so this is the other end. Yeah, so Phil and I met for a couple of weeks, and you know, and then we actually pitched the game at Nuremberg, which was like end of January. So if you think that's like the game wasn't even 2 months old when we pitched it. And that's the crazy thing about narrative games in a way. Like you very quickly have an idea of whether something works or not, and you don't have to build out the whole game. You know, we kind of had a sample scenario. You know, I don't know, it was like 40 cards or something. You know, it wasn't so much, but it's just to kind of show the concept. Does it work? And a publisher can kind of tell whether they're interested in it or not. And we pitched it to 8 people in that convention, had really good feedback. I think, again, like another kind of cool, lucky thing was that when we set out to design the game, I don't know if we were kind of like thinking, let's hop on the narrative train. For us, we were sort of interested in let's have this open kind of almost adventure RPG style system or like game book system. But I'm not sure if we were consciously trying to follow a trend, but I think we definitely were pitching it at a good time because a lot of publishers were looking for, they'd seen the kind of success of things like Time Stories. And I think we're looking for new things in this space. So we're really fortunate, and we signed it very, very quickly with Cosmos. The funny story, which I related in the, I did a kind of choose your own adventure designer diary for Board Game Geek, which I recommend checking out if you're interested. You're in outer space with Rob and Ken. Where is? Oh, is this something to do with Michael's? Is this like IdleCon stuff that's going on, or am I just reading into some sort of other euphemism or something? But anyway, I was lucky to even show it to Cosmos. Oh, I see, playing the crew. Oh, okay. Yes, I would. Has anyone played the crew at 2? I would be interested to know if it's any good at 2, because I probably could play it at 2 quite a bit, but I didn't know whether it would be fun at 2. But Action is addicted to the crew. Is that somebody? Action? It's quite different. Okay, interesting. Oh, hey Mendel, how you going? Welcome, welcome. Oh, okay. So you played the entire campaign at 2. Oh, interesting. Well, anyway, it's interesting to just in time to say it's still good at 2. Thanks for that. Perfect. Yeah, well, okay. Well, maybe I'll have a look into seeing how I get a copy, because I'm a big trick-taking game fan. It's good, but not the same experience. Yeah, I expect as much. I mean, I played like Lit. I could probably still get the game, I guess, and then experience it with other people, and I guess it's something you can kind of replay and enjoy and things like that. So that would be good. I should drink some water because it's been 45 minutes. For all those who've just dropped by, sort of a brief deep dive into each of the games kind of released or announced this year, kind of looking back, give a bit of a behind the scenes look at it. But anyway, Cosmos, very fortunate, signed very quickly. And they released the first scenario, or the first 2, in fact, in March 2019. So that's like 1 year ahead. Hey, Theo, how you going? Welcome. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, really nice to see you. Yeah.
Nice of you to say so.
Oh gosh, my phone thinks I'm talking to it. Yeah, so kind of like the shortest probably possible journey from idea to it being published. You know, not much more than a year. This does not normally happen. What about these adventure games? Anyone know if they're any good at 2 players? Well, I'd probably say they're probably, I'd say that's probably one of the better counts for it in a way, because I think with all these kind of narrative games, it's you know, it's the percentage of time you get to be reading the thing or make the direct decision or come up with the, or like escape room games, I think are the same with Exit. You know, it's you've got like 6 or 7 puzzles, and ultimately, usually one person is the person who has a breakthrough. And if there are fewer people playing it, it's just you get a higher percentage of having those breakthrough moments. It's why I really like doing physical escape rooms with as few, like kind of 2 or 3 people is my kind of favorite count. And I think adventure games are the same. That being said, I think if you enjoy story and like sharing it, then, you know, like going up to the 4 is great. And actually getting, especially with this one, Grand Hotel Abandon, we also implemented these specific character missions. So you actually have kind of like a little mini storyline for each of the characters. And so if you play with all 4, then you get to experience all of that. And if you don't play with all 4, then you won't get to experience some like the characters you don't use. And you could play it again with new characters, but you know, you've kind of experienced a lot of it. So, you know, if you kind of want to see all the content, 4 players is better, but 2 players in terms of most of it is also still fine. Theo asks, 1 year is amazing. What's your record? It's the quickest, longest. Yeah, adventure games is probably definitely the quickest I've ever had. And actually, I was just on the previous slide. I don't know whether I can go back. With right click back, maybe. No. Oh, yeah. I was talking about Monumental, and this is probably the longest, I think. There probably are some games that are still under contract, possibly, that might beat this. I'm trying to think. There's probably a few games that, yeah, 1 or 2, or even things I'm kind of still pitching. But yeah, this was the longest kind of idea to publication. Yeah, I don't know what yours are like, records. Rose says, I play the Exit games now as 2, and I tried 4, wasn't as fun. I agree, normally escape rooms are better with a small group. And where do you stand on escape rooms being linear, non-linear? That caused debate with my friends. Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I am a big fan of a mix, actually. I mean, that's probably a bit of a cop-out answer. But I think the best escape rooms have a mixture of kind of like parallel and serial kind of puzzles. I think having serial puzzles definitely helps, especially like early on in the room, to kind of get you acquainted with something, or at different points to kind of give you focus. I think there's really nice moments where like there's only one puzzle and everyone can work on that together and everyone can focus. And there's points where you get to actually, it also means that everyone can see the puzzle usually, and you can kind of partake in it, and you have a better shared experience with the whole group. On the other hand, I love like sort of non-linear. I sort of say parallel, where you have like puzzles you can do at the same time and that might lead in different directions, or because I love, that's actually kind of also a meta puzzle when I give you a room and maybe there are 3 puzzles and you have to even work out which are the bits for which puzzles. And when that's done really well in escape room, I love the freedom that gives, and it really feels like you actually even use kind of different skills that you might do on a specific puzzle. So yeah, it's I think that, yeah, that's kind of where I stand. I like a mix of them. If I had to absolutely guess, if I wanted to like be on one side or the other, I would say non-linear I think is better than linear, just because it's, especially with bigger groups, it means more people can be doing things. Like the worst thing with like linear ones where you're doing one puzzle after another, if you're a bigger group, I've been to a few rooms that were really badly designed that you could only fit like 2 people looking at a puzzle at a time, and I actually honestly was standing around doing nothing for like 5 minutes. And that's like you just don't want that to happen. So yeah, I think I'd always go for non-linearity. Yes, I am talking about real life escape rooms in this case. But I mean, I think the similar concepts do apply to like Exit, for example. I remember, I haven't played all the Exits. I do remember the earlier ones seem to be a little bit more non-linear in that you kind of were given the book and you weren't led through it. I've definitely done some later Exits which were very much like, do the puzzle on the first, do the puzzle on these 2 pages, then turn over the page, now do this puzzle, like it was very, and I understand maybe that's a little bit about like it's an easier versus harder experience, but I prefer the non-linear thing. But I think I'm a different audience. I've done a lot of physical escape rooms and a lot of board game equivalents. That's a very different person or player to someone who's like, this is my first escape room. Whereas doing linear things is probably a better way to not get lost with all of that. Thea says, La Papa for me. Oh yeah, this your really cute like children's game which you just showed was about 9 months. Wow, okay, really quick. Is it actually already available? Or I couldn't tell from your stream. And Flying Goblins was almost 6 years. Yeah, it's it's yeah. I mean, that's I would say obviously the average is somewhere between, and we'll see with actually I've got the other games here. You'll see everything basically falls between this kind of 1 to 7 years thing. Alex says, I love making puzzle games, but I'm terrible at making them intuitive enough. Lots of testing required. Yeah, and that's exactly the same for narrative games as well. And we're also kind of working on some mystery games, which are closer to something like Sherlock Holmes, which is always, it's not so much about making cool puzzles or combinations or stories. It's about giving the players enough clues to both feel like that they have that moment of not knowing, but then that they can work out what's happening. And it's so variable amongst different groups about who will see certain things, who will make certain connections, how quickly it will do. I think in the end, you just need to have like a robust hint system, which we're able to do with the adventure games. That's really important because everyone's going to struggle in different ways, and that's why physical escape rooms work so well, right? Because if you have a good hint system in your physical escape rooms, that's also super important because generally you're always going to get stuck on something, but it's going to be different for everybody. So you need to have someone who's adaptive and responsive and also knows how to give the right hints, where it's just enough to kind of push you a little bit in the direction, but not give you the whole answer. Those are definitely things to sort of be thinking about. Robert, I prefer non-linear as I love finding lots of things I have to communicate what we find or are doing. My friends who prefers linear says they don't want to miss anything. Yeah, and I think you've described it really well. There's different audiences, and Scott Nicholson described it as like that, different roles in an escape room, and one of them is kind of the communicator or like not the captain, but the communicator, where you're sort of not exactly a manager, but you're trying to work out what's going on with all these different tasks. So have people got what they need? What could this be? For, connecting disparate pieces of information, and some people really enjoy that, and I enjoy that too, actually. So maybe that's why I also like non-linear things. Aqua's puzzles make me feel the opposite of smart, whatever that word is. Challenged, maybe. I'm not sure. Yes. So anyway, that's fun delve into escape room games, and maybe Theo could mention. I don't know what's your, because Theo has designed a few unlock scenarios, and I don't know what your experience was sort of thinking about linearity or non-linearity. Maybe we could chat. Maybe we'll have a stream. I definitely want to have Theo on the stream at some point. Maybe that's something we'll chat about, or we could. I've always Theo does these amazing like morning streams at 9 o'clock with a coffee. And I don't want to make any kind of just very, very French, but I'd love to replicate that feeling sometime. Loves non-linearity. Yeah, I have a feeling like amongst game designers and that I think the non-linearity, because it's just more of a challenge, right? I think that's going to be the normal thing that we're interested in. So again, but we're not necessarily the target audience for these, and the things like Unlock or Exit, the reason they're so successful is because they can cater to the people who do an escape room the first time, and if you look at, I don't know what, it's an exponential curve of people who will do 1 or 2 escape rooms, but the fact that there are so many people happy to do one is the reason that these things can stay in business, obviously. Well, that's enough about the adventure games, maybe. Definitely, probably like kind of the most charmed kind of existence in terms of how quickly everything went together. And I think especially also just in terms of how much work these games are. When you look at, I don't know how many pages the booklet of text is, and the fact that we wrote it in English, then Cosmos had to translate it into German, do all their playtesting, copy editing, just even that process, and they were still working with us, so constantly translating back and forth. Really, really happy, and I feel like this like wave 2, which I'd say from Grand Hotel Abaddon onwards, I feel like we're learning and learning more, and hopefully they'll be even better. Theo says, but sometimes I'm like, why am I making everything so difficult to design if not that many people are going to enjoy that aspect? Yeah, that's true. You have to, and I think I said earlier with narrative games, part of it actually, or escape room games or things like that, is it's making the mechanisms almost invisible. You want to kind of deliver kind of an interesting hook or choice or experience, but you kind of want the players not to even notice it or to have to worry about it. And that's also something we've learned with the adventure games, is actually removing as much kind of fiddly rule systems or hit points or anything. They were in the game. In Dungeon there is that you have hit points. In Monochrome you have the alarm, And I think we'll see less and less of that as we go on, because we realize it's not what players like. It's not what, even though we were like, oh, it's cool to have a bit of a, this cool mechanism and tension. It's like, no, it's not what people are playing these for. We don't need that. So yeah, it's good to know. And you just learn over time, basically. And thankfully they've done well enough that we can keep releasing new ones. And that's you don't always get to do that, right? You get one shot at it, and if you didn't quite get it right, well, then that's all you get to do. You're not going to get to release another game in that series. So yeah, really, really, really thankful for that. Yeah, so these are on to now the games that have not yet been actually released, although they have been kind of announced and stuff of them is out there. So I'm reasonably confident that they are in fact going to be published. I should say always that now these timings are not, they're hopeful, but I'm hoping that most of these will come out or be kickstarted in the first half of 2021. So the first is Spy Connection, which is this family game designed with Brett Gilbert that will be published by Pegasus. We started about 2016. I actually couldn't find an original entry for when we started working on this. I think the main reason for that is actually that the core idea came from Brett, and it doesn't usually, the ideas come from me first with our collaboration. So, and I have some record of them, but I look at emails. I think of sometime early 2016, and we pitched the game at Essen in 2016. And pitched to sort of 10 different companies. This number sort of comes up. It's kind of 8 to 10 pitches. It's sort of roughly amongst the case, say 30 publishers you meet at Essen, a particular game might be suitable for a quarter to a third of them. So that's the kind of number you pitch to. And actually, this was in a way, it was a long period because it took a year kind of from like pitch to being signed. But I think somewhere in that sign of 6 to 9 months. With these kind of bigger European companies does happen. That's somewhat normal, and you kind of get used to it. So yeah, but this is definitely a game that probably suffered from the pandemic. It would have probably been released this year, but things hit various snags. So it will be released next year. So it's been about 5 years. Probably could have been 4. So like slightly long, but I think we're really happy with what they've done with it. I showed it on stream a little bit earlier. It's cool, kind of like map building, the kind of route building game, and I'm really hoping that it can. You never know with these kind of family weight titles, but I hope it can find a place in them, because the rules are really, really simple. But I think it's quite a fun game. So yeah, fingers crossed. Next up is Vivid, which also co-designed with Brett. It's code name of Maze, because we're in this kind of trend of, this game sort of came about of really trying to make a game in the kind of Azul universe, and we did pitch it to Plan B, for example. That was something. So we sort of pun-in-cheek sort of gave it a 4-letter, because all their games are like 4 letters. And yeah, so we decided, started designing the game in sort of early part of 2018. First pitched the game at UK Games Expo in mid-2018, but we kept pitching it in Essen that year. So again, kind of roughly 10 companies. And the interesting thing is, quite a few companies were interested in it, places, but it never really found a home. Nobody wanted it. And it wasn't until I I was at Gen Con in last year. I was going to say like 2 years. Again, it feels such a long time ago. And I don't normally go to Gen Con. I was able to kind of, the times I've gone to Gen Con, I've gone to Gen Con twice. I've been able to time it with an academic conference that's paid for my flights. So I was able to do that last year. Anyway, and met the folks at Floodgate Games, probably best known for Sagrada. And I'm now forgetting, it's Luke, forgetting the publisher's name, which is not very good. Anyway, and he loved it, which was great. And yeah, he signed it shortly after. It wasn't that much long. About a month after we showed him, I showed him the game at Gen Con, and yeah, David's going to go and kill Paul in City of Thieves. Okay, no problem. And, good luck with that. Good luck. Thanks for dropping by. It does look cute. It's actually not a kid's game, interesting enough. I guess it's a family game. It's roughly in the weight of Azul, but fundamentally is an abstract game. Again, like, it was very much in Azul. There's sort of 5 different colors, but actually the amazing thing that Floodgate has done is actually put an amazing theme, which in a way actually makes sense. It's a game about making connections with colored stones. And interesting enough, the board that we had originally made had a shape that when Ben saw it, he immediately thought of shape of a brain, actually. And once he had that, he was like, oh, maybe we're making connections between memories in our minds. And then there was this amazing thing of like remembering childhood memories. And that's kind of the theme of the game now, which I love. And they got Andrew Bosley, who's an incredible illustrator. And yeah, if you like this cover, there is more of this art in the box, which is just incredible. And I love that they've repeated this kind of theme of like, mirroring, what you were doing as a child and what you were imagining you were doing. And this is the one I am really, really like pumped to see come out, because I think, even though the game's abstract, I think having a great theme and something in some ways relatable for people to have while playing is really important. And it's Ben, sorry, Ben Perkins, I think. I'm sorry, whoever's. I'm going to look up later, and I'm going to realize I had it all wrong. But in any case, so there'll be a Kickstarter, I think, in the first quarter or second quarter next year. So I'm trying to make us back another game. Don't worry, Theo. I'm sure I'll get you a copy somehow. So actually, this was, in a way, pretty quick process. Like kind of 2+ years. I mean, realistically, by the time it's delivered, it's probably close to 3. But I'd say like 2 to 3 years is pretty standard for this sort of thing. But yeah, really, really happy. It has not already been released. It will be Kickstarter next year. So something to check out. And yeah, really, really happy how it's turned out. Next, this I'm glad people are still around and asking questions. It's not just me lecturing about. I think I've seen the cover. Yeah, no, I did release the cover. I think there was a slight bit of communication snafu where the cover maybe shouldn't have been released, but until a bit later. But in any case, it's out now, so it's out there. Another game with Brett started in 2017. Actually kind of came together really quickly. I think there was a game, we were trying to make a kind of short, sharp, quick game. It's one of those things about every time we're coming up to Essen and you're like, I must have a game to pitch to X, Y, and Z publishers, or we need the kind of family weight, 30 to 45 minute game. And we made that in September 2023. Code name was Nile. So it's one of these funny things that hasn't changed the theme at all, actually, which is good, because the central mechanism of the game is that you're sailing up and down the Nile and picking up cards. Interestingly enough, it's not so dissimilar to a Knizia game, Whale Riders, which we didn't know about. Like, I think basically currently developed. I think I was just looking at Eric Martin just put out a video of Sumatra, which is a relatively new, I think, Knizia game as well. And I think, looking back, I think for people who like Knizia games, this could really fit in that scale. It's it's quite lean set collection game with a really interactive way of getting the cards. Knizia often has games where you're going along a path together, and it's whether you go forward or back. But the kind of trick with this is that you're putting cards along the Nile, and after the first round, you may be starting at different ends of the Nile, and you'll be sailing towards each other. So it's about when do you kind of cross, and how much you want to get to the cards further along, and you can't turn back, or you can turn back by paying a currency in like a very limited way, and then you're collecting these cards to build monuments. But anyway, so it's again the normal kind of 10 pitches. But again, this was another one which didn't kind of find a home amongst kind of Essen publishers. I went to Cannes in 2019. Yeah, so actually this game, in a way, we were kind of pitching it for a year and a half roughly. And met with Anne Karma, they really, they signed it fairly quickly after Cannes. They were quite happy with it, and I think it's being produced right now, I hope, and should be out, the first half again next year. Again, I hope. A really nice, they're kind of like small box games like Draftosaurus, which is one of Theo's designs. I think it'll be the same size box. And yeah, I think I like a fun little interactive set collection game. So really happy with how it's turned out. Theo asks, how do I deal with rejection? How do you deal with rejection? I find it hard to show a prototype to another publisher after a no. Well, I mean, the short answer to that is very lucky to, I guess, that we just pitch it to a bunch of people in the same convention. And usually you have enough publishers who want to at least take the prototype. They're not giving you like a definite yes or no, but it's like a maybe. And that's enough to let you feel like you can keep pitching it to other people. There definitely have been sometimes when you have like your first meeting at Essen, you have this new game that you've worked on and you show it to the first publisher and they just go like it's just a flat no, or sometimes worse, it's like I'm just thinking of gems that I should collect quotes from publishers over the years, but one was, there is nothing new here. I remember like just sort of deadpan comment or something like that. Anyway, like if you get something like that in the first meeting, yeah, I think it could be quite tough, but you just have to, I don't know. I think it helps being two people too. Like I'm often pitching with Brett. So, you kind of help each other out and you just keep going. You just kind of have to, I don't know. I don't know how you find it there, but you're just sort of you're in the zone. You're at us and you've got meeting after meeting after meeting and you get in that zone and you pitch, and it is weird. I think you have to develop this kind of way of almost like double think, I guess, where you have to kind of put anything else you might be thinking about the game at the back and just pitch it as it's the best it can be. Yeah, Theo finds it hard. Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, I obviously like. I think the thing I find more difficult ultimately is when a publisher has had a game for a long time and then they reject it, especially if they've asked you to do work on it or you've had lots of like conversations about the game. I think I find that a lot harder, especially if it's reaching like the year plus territory where a publisher's been considering a game, because you feel like you've done so much work to try and get to a point where they would publish it and you kind of fail just at the last end. I find that a lot harder. And I think that I find harder to come back from, because you kind of feel like, well, I kind of almost got to the point and it still didn't make it. And that can be hard. There are definitely a couple of designs which have had that problem, which I don't know if I can really, I almost don't have the strength to pitch them anymore. Like I don't want to go through it anymore. Yeah, having a game cancelled. I luckily, I have had games returned to me, so I guess cancelled technically. But I think I haven't had any games sort of cancelled which there was any production made on. But yeah, that's a weird feeling when you sign a game. In some ways, it removes a little bit of like your mental headspace. It kind of moves to a different part. You're like, you do have to worry about it still, but it's not in the same active way. And it's hard to go, once it's gone to that kind of space, you don't have to worry. It's hard to come back and go like, now it's not going to be published. I mean, I remember probably the worst example of that is I have a real-time dice rolling racing game. It's kind of like my version of Mario Kart, where you kind of feel like you're actually racing. It's kind of a fun kind of, and you can imagine, I like the game, but it is hard to pitch because like real-time racing games, there's only so many publishers that are interested in that. And I found a publisher for it who liked it and had signed it, and it had signed it for a year. And then, I met them the next Essen, and they were my first meeting, and we were pitching other stuff. And they said just at the start of the meeting, I'm sorry, we're going to have to return this game to you that we signed last year because we realized that we've released another racing game and we didn't realize when we signed your game that we had another racing game. Anyway, that was probably the hardest thing. So I have this kind of game which I feel like is almost unsellable, even though I really like it. I people enjoyed it. So if anyone knows looking for real-time racing games, do let me know. But yeah, that was probably the toughest one, I would say. Thankfully, I'll get to sort of like disappointments a little bit later on of this year. I had one game was returned to me this year. That's a very good question, Robert. A very good question. I will say no more about it. I will not mention the publisher. But yes, you'd be surprised. I mean, this happens in any, like if there's a team, it's not you know, one person might be working on a project, not everyone's working on every project. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Another game actually that's been around for a long time. It's now called Junk Forts. It'll be released by Into the Box Games, I hope, early next year. And this one started life in 2015. So yeah, it was about kind of like 6 years now we're looking at. And yeah, we first pitched the game in 2015. You know, we were sort of one of these things that working on in the months leading up to Essen. It's sort of another one in the kind of, like, I would say it's not exactly like a spiritual successor, but it's somewhat of a successor to Pyramids, which was another kind of small, you know, 110 cards game where you're laying cards in a tableau. This has a kind of a fun little like rondel that you're kind of picking up cards from, which is quite nice. And the interesting thing about this one was it was actually signed to a publisher in 2015, but that company then went out of business, and unfortunately, yeah. So that game we got put into, and yes, again, this was the interesting thing, because you've pitched to all these people, you've went with one publisher, and then, you know, you get the game returned to you, and sometimes you just don't know what to do with it, because you're like, well, it's not the most exciting game in the world, and we've shown it to, you know, the usual people we meet with. So what do we do? And interesting enough, I just had it in my bag at a small UK convention, Aircon. The first time I'd ever gone to Aircon, I think, or maybe the second, I'm not sure. I don't know why I had the prototype actually, and just kind of on a whim, I sat down. I didn't really know inside the box games, and just sat down, and I wasn't planning on pitching, but it just got around. I think the person at the publisher knew me, or at least had heard of me and my games, and said, "Do you have anything to pitch?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I've got this game in my bag." I you know, I don't think I had probably that much confidence in it, but I showed it anyway, and they were interested, and they decided to sign it. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a journey. Funnily enough, the theme before this was going to be snow forts. Of course, in the intermission, Fort has been released, which has a very similar theme to this. Funnily enough, now, so yeah, not as kind of unique, but it's a game I still kind of really like. And I like these kind of small form factor games with a bit of punch, and where that, you know, games play out differently from game to game, and there's a little bit nice bit of interaction. You know, it would be the kind of thing you can fit in one of those like quivers really easily. You know, it is really just 110 cards. Yeah, and you get to build something, which I think I always like in these kind of small card games, when you get like some sort of spatial building that you get to do. So I'm very much hoping it'll come out next year. It's been a little bit of a while, but yeah, that's the kind of the potted story of big up on the Lunchbox series. Are you in the no, sorry, is Scorer the first one of the Lunchbox series? Am I? Yeah, that maybe I should. Yeah, exactly. Rory's in the chat. Your game is the first game maybe of the Lunchbox series, possibly. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, a great series. I mean, how can we follow a Scorer? I mean, that's you know. But I hope that yeah, I'm not. Yeah, hopefully it will be in the new year. Yeah, because I think the intention is they're going to be a line of these kind of smaller box games that they'll release. But yeah, quite a journey. 6 years, I guess, in the end of the day. Well, hopefully. Yeah, and then kind of some more recent things in a way. So this, well, I was talking a bit about roll and writes earlier. So this Dice Hospital ER emergency roll, which was kind of Dice Hospital roll, right? And this was actually quite different. Yeah, it's funny. Theo, you were asking about my shortest experience. Maybe this is actually shorter even than the adventure games, because it's really, well, not to actually a physical product, but in terms of like kind of pitch to like idea to signing, almost, you know, like months basically. You know, we started early this year, in fact, just before the pandemic hit, and it was sort of in response to talking to Cesar at Alley Cat, and then they were looking for a roll and write for Dice Hospital, and it was sort of the first game, one of the first games I've made, sort of in response to a pitch that has actually got to the end product. And yeah, so only one pitch to Alley Cat, and yeah, we signed the game, you know, later the year, and it was, you know, it's what they wanted, thankfully. So it actually was a very smooth process, and again, I think. You know, the first concept I had was not exactly right, but Brett had a really great little twist to take what my initial idea was, and I think we're lucky to get on a good idea quite quickly that took some of the DNA from Dice Hospital and then put in this Roll and Write with a nice little twist. So actually, the kind of that process has been quite smooth, and I love the Jackie Davis art. It fits in the Dice Hospital universe, and that's going to be part of a Kickstarter first half of next year, I think. The hope is. So yeah, very very quick, but also very different experience. Obviously this game would never have got published by anybody else. We were making it very, very, very specific. Theory's mentioning Scorer, yes, and Rory is the illustrator and graphic designer, if I'm very much mistaken, of Scorer as well. Correct me, Rory, if I'm wrong. Rory is he's the new Ryan Lockhart, maybe the British Ryan Lockhart, if you are in fact British. I hope I got that right, Rory. But it's fantastic. I look forward to seeing a physical product sometime. I think it'd be really cool. We're almost done. This is feeling like a bit of a. I mean, it's obviously a really nice Ryan Lowcat. No, it doesn't quite work, does it? Don't post this. I'm not sure. I'm being a bit slightly cheeky and showing a draft of the cover for this last game, which is probably going to be known as the Gardens, not Botanic Gardens, but it's going to be set in the Botanic Gardens in Sydney. It's with Grail Games, and this game also had a kind of a very short gestation to pitching process. Like, was another one of these games we developed leading up to Essen. Again, it's sort of like started as 110 card game, and pitched a lot of people in Essen. Didn't really have great response, and to be honest, I think it had landed in the bucket probably, I don't know, by early, especially when you come around to the next Essen and you pitch that game to everybody in the last Essen, it starts to get to the point where you're like, will we ever sign this game? Because you're running out of people to pitch it to. But again, Gen Con actually was a really good convention. I met with David of Grail Games. So it took someone who lived in the UK, like two Australians, one who lived in Australia, one who lived in the UK, to meet in America to make this work. And he kind of immediately got it. Like, again, it's kind of a simpler, very gentle kind of set collection, building a garden kind of game. And he really dug it. And so sometimes you just have to, you just have to wait a long enough time to find the right, the right connection, find the right publisher. Much like, a game can find players, you have to find the right publisher. So there'll be a Kickstarter next year, I hope, early next year. And already I love the look. I love it being set in Sydney, which is kind of where I was born. I love, it's my first game kind of set in Australia. And it's a place for me that has like really fond, strong memories, which is and I think it's going to look really, really lovely. So yeah, that's kind of that, and so that's kind of like 3 years, But it's interesting in all of these, like you see that not the delays, but the time can come from many different ways. Sometimes it just takes a really long time to actually design the game until you pitch it. Sometimes you have to pitch it a lot to a lot of different companies, a lot of different conventions until you find the right person. Sometimes you do sign it and then it gets returned to you, or the company goes out of business. Sometimes it takes a really long time from that point where you sign the game to actually it being released, maybe because you had to develop it a lot, or there, pandemic-related delays or things like that. So hopefully this gives a bit of an idea of the various things that can go into that process and how long it may or may not take. So yeah, so any questions? Or I think we're at okay. So I like the current cover. Yeah, no, I think this will be that. I don't know how to go back again. Oh no, here we go. I think it's a draft. I don't think it's going to necessarily change, although nothing's final. So, but I will feed that back. That yes, people seem to like it. I like it a lot too. I really like the look of it. Yeah, and there are going to be cute Australian animals in there as well, which I'm very much looking forward to. Okay. I should have probably put some sort of like title slide or something in between before I was like, money. So for those who weren't here earlier, one thing for for me, that was a real inspiration of doing this kind of recap. Is Arnold Rowers of Tiny Touch Tales does a kind of a yearly blog where he looks back on his year as a designer, as a developer, and is actually really open about his finances. And I'm going to shout out his stream again. I put it in the chat a bit earlier because he's going to be doing his actually his kind of recap as a live stream this year on Wednesday evening, which is in 2 evenings at 8 p.m. Central Eastern Time, I think. So give him a follow if you can. I really appreciate it, and check him out. I think he's also going to produce a blog, his normal blog post as well, kind of as an accompanying piece. But yeah, he's very open about finances, and it may be like I've struggled. Like I've read these for at least a few years, and had wanted to, I guess, to do it because I think it helped. I hope it is helpful for people who are getting in the industry, but also even for people in the industry to have a little bit more information about what to go on, or even just to have an idea of what's kind of possible or not. That being said, I'm sort of in the intermediate period right now, in that there are still some things that are a little bit different. I'm not making my own games. You know, if I was making my own games, I could be as open about finances as possible. But you know, I'm talking about things sometimes that are in contracts, and sometimes details of contracts are confidential. So I can't give absolutely exact numbers, but I'm hopefully, you know, giving more information than's normal. And going forward, I'm going to try and actually talk to publishers very directly and get kind of the okay from them, like that they say, yes, I'm happy to share, like you can share like all the data on this, you know, like exactly how much money you made and exactly how many copies were sold and these sort of things. Yeah, well, yes, very non-American. Yeah, I'm Australian. What can I say? We're pretty frank, so maybe that I'm channeling my inner Australian now. But anyway, the first thing to talk about is advances, and I should say that I'm just looking at income from this year. Some of the numbers are like a little bit weird. I've had some weird accounting problems from being, you know, like Australian living in 2 different countries, none of which are my, you know, citizenship country. So there's a little bit of weird complication. I've tried to kind of like simplify it. But yeah, anyway. So I got advances from 6 games this year. And the amount of the advance ranged, and I've sort of converted everything into euros. You know, these contracts have ranged across British pounds, euros, and American dollars. So I just put everything in euros because that's a bit easier. But feel free to convert in your head to whatever currency you prefer. And yeah, so the total advance ranged from 400 euros all the way up to 5,000 euros. And I don't normally get, you know, in fact, I think in every one of these cases, they were all co-designed, so I was getting like 50% of that, so like 200 euros to 2,500 euros, but the total amount. But the total from all of the games together was just short of 7,000 euros. Hello, Low Gamer, how are you going? Welcome to the stream. I think you're new. What am I doing? Well, yeah, I'm a tabletop game designer, and these streams kind of give a bit of a background, like behind the curtain look of what it's like to be a professional game designer. And this is my look back on the year of 2020. So I've gone through before looking at the kind of the games that have been announced or released of mine this year, sort of talking a little bit about the background, how they came to be, you know, how long they took to make and things like that. And I'm trying to now talk a little bit about finances and you know, trying to be a bit open about what you might expect to make as a game designer, as a tabletop game designer. So just over about 7,000 euros for across 6 games, but you can see like the majority of that is from 2. So you can imagine, obviously, the one that was 5,000 euros is you know, a large percentage of that. So this is definitely advances are one of those things that I think is very hard to be like, it has to kind of be anonymous. So I unfortunately can't say exactly which company did what or like exactly, but hopefully this gives a bit of a breakdown just to show that actually it varies hugely. But I would say that like 400 euros is I think close to like the minimum accepted amount. So what games did I release this year? Yeah, so sorry for those who were before. These were the games I released this year. So there were 2 adventure games. from Cosmos. Well, this one was in English, this one in German. Monumental, which was Kickstarter last year, was delivered to backers this year, which was great. And I worked on this print and play game for the Diamond Light Source, Synchrotron in the UK, try and educate students about science and careers in synchrotron science and things like that. And there's a few other games which were announced, but pushed back for various reasons, but hopefully will be released next year. But you can catch up on the stream later, or also the video will go up on YouTube at some point. Thanks very much for dropping by, Alex, and enjoy dinner, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks. So yes, anyway, so those advances. If also, I should say, questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to answer anything. So a pretty good year, I would say. Then probably maybe the more important thing, or at least in terms of larger, is talking about royalties. So I wish I was a better account keeper. I'm getting better. I still had to do a bit of work yesterday to try and work out exactly what the breakdown was for everything. So from 12 games, or I would say sort of like properties, in this case I've counted all the adventure games for which I've received royalties as a single game. So 12 kind of differently named games. I've made just shy of about 70,000 euros, which does sound amazing, and it has actually certainly been the best year ever for me as a professional game designer in terms of royalty amount. This, I should say, is all gross. That doesn't take into account tax or other costs or anything like that. And kind of looking at that a little bit more in detail, you can see though it's definitely not. It's not sort of equal. Basically, it's probably for me the two biggest things were I received my royalties for the Monumental Kickstarter that happened last year. I was paid in this year, and that's basically roughly half of my royalties, and then the adventure games across those three products altogether, which have done quite well. That's again another fair thwack. I should also say that there's also a bit of a difference in that the Monumental, this is pretty much the only game I think in all of these that I'm the solo designer of. So this is 100% of the royalties for the game, whereas the adventure games, I'm getting half of the total royalties. That's a monumental percentage. Yes, So, but of course, and the reason I sort of talked about the background of the games first was that, again, for those who didn't see the Monumental slide, that game from conception as an idea when I started working on it to when it actually got into the hands of backers, and realistically when I got paid, is 7.5 years. So again, it wasn't working full time on it those 7.5 years, but you sort of have to. That is a different lens to look through. It's obviously very nice now, but it's many years of work, and in a way, it's still kind of a sort of slightly hit-driven industry in that usually there are 12 games here, but one or two of them are the majority of the money that I've earned from those 12 games. So people sort of roughly talk about that you make one game to pay for the other 9 sort of thing in digital games, and it's something slightly similar in tabletop games. The other thing is that these two are the ones that were released this year. And you see, when you look at, for example, I promised that would be charts. Actually, this might be the last chart. But I sort of plotted the amount of royalties versus when the game was originally released. And you can see there's basically an exponential trend down. The farther back something was released, you basically are making nothing. And this is really to highlight the point that really the majority generally of the royalties you'll get from any game are the year it's released. And then you'll see very, very little royalties go. In the case of the adventure games, we're a bit lucky because we're able to keep releasing new scenarios, and Monumental, we'll be able to do new expansions. And for example, I trust that I will get paid for the Kickstarter for the African Empires expansion. I'll get paid for that next year. But for a normal kind of standalone release, the majority of the games, I'd say 90% of the games really you don't see really any kind of noticeable royalties past the first year, and it's more and more the case that you see that essentially that there's not many more royalties past the first year. So that's also sort of to give a bit of an insight of that you know, like again, that looks like great, but that's might be all the money that you would, you know, in a sort of a more normal sense, that might be all the money you would get from it. Now, of course, with Kickstarter, there's a slightly different model, but you know, that's sort of how things work, I guess. So don't know if that was useful, but yeah, definitely the best for me, the best year I've ever had in terms of payments of royalties. And the next stream, actually, which will be the first one of 2021, is going to be a bit of like looking forward. What are my goals and plans for 2021? But it's one of the things that's allowed me to. The plan will be to go properly part-time in my current job and properly part-time as a game designer. So I'll have it'll be a bit easier to balance everything, hopefully. Sorry, though, gamer, I missed your question. Have I ever made a horror game? I haven't, I'm afraid. I'm not a big fan of horror, so I haven't done anything like that. But I never say never. Who knows? Yeah, so that's kind of the money thing. But if anyone has questions, and again, like I do realize it's maybe a little bit light on absolute granular details, but at least you have a bit of an idea of like what's the basic amount. I should say I am very fortunate. I've been able to do all this while having another job. You know, like this looks like a big number, but you know, in the years preceding, it was, you know, order of magnitude lower than this, I would say. So, you know, this is like the success of a few properties like Monumental Adventure Games have allowed me to do this. I didn't have this kind of success before. So yeah. Yeah, anyway, enough about money. Nobody likes to talk about money. But yeah, hopefully next year I'll have even better figures when I talk to publishers a little bit more closely and get an idea of what I can show. No worries. Thanks very much for dropping by, Ori. And yeah, hope you can catch up on YouTube and enjoy your role playing. Yeah, take care. Thanks. Cool. All right. And kind of looking a little bit forward, I guess other things that happened during the year. I signed a few new games, which is cool. Yeah, called Metro, which I signed, which is this kind of flip and write game that I signed a few weeks ago. Heirloom, which is a narrative game, which I signed with Dave Neal, who is a great narrative designer based in Cambridge, who has done the latest box of the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. He's a really talented guy. You're going to see his name on a lot more things in the coming years. Hopefully with my name as well. We're working on a few things together, but we signed this one, and I would say this is probably it is planned to be released next year, and it's probably one of the big things that we're quite excited about, I would say. Will it be called Metro, as that's already a known tile name? No, it will not be called Metro. As you can see from my terrible code names, I don't work very hard. But you are building you're building a map of a metro, essentially. If you know Mini Metro, the digital game, it's kind of my take on that, basically. But that's a solo design, which was kind of nice, and I designed that all this year and pitched and sold it, which was kind of cool. And then Theo's in chat. We have signed well, we're in the process of signing a children's game. So I've actually Theo seems to be my partner for working with on children's games with. Signed, yes, signed in quotation marks. So we previously have signed another game called Around the World with Jekko, a French game company, which I hope will come out next year. Maybe Theo knows more than me. I hope it will come out. We've seen some art; it looks lovely. And yeah, Theo's actually got a lot more experience than me in designing children's games. But I always love working with Theo, and you know, he's happy to kind of humor me and does most of the work. So you know, that's makes it very easy for me to work with him. But we had a new kind of like archaeology themed kids game, which yeah, I think is really fun, a really cool idea. So yeah, let's see what will happen. Probably won't come out next year though, I doubt. But the other two, I hope will. Well, I'm not sure about Metro anyway, but Heirloom, I'm hopeful for. And yeah, I guess also, you know, it's not all about, you know, you don't always have successes. So there are a couple of games which I designed and kind of I would consider to be finished the design. And it's really two-pitch, actually. This year, kind of disappointment, obviously there weren't conventions, so I didn't really have that many meetings where I was pitching games. So Doug Kaufman owns a board game cafe here in Prague. I've known him for quite a while, but we started working on a game together, and we finished it. It's kind of a cool, like, special power card game, kind of cool way of drafting the cards and paying for them, which yeah, we're hoping to pitch to some people. Kind of made an amazing race card game. Weirdly enough, I didn't edit this slide because I just saw a game that was released 2 years ago, which is very similar to what this game is. This was sort of a fast-paced, put plane tickets together to fly around the world. But I think the game already exists now, so I'm not sure if that's going to go anywhere. I was working a lot on a game inspired by sort of auto battler games, sort of like Hearthstone Battlegrounds. But this was sort of a drafting version of that, which is finished, although there's still the endless kind of tweaking of cards. There's lots of kind of special abilities and monsters and things like that. But I'm really happy with that, actually, I think. And Brett, a very great title, Kingdom Cards. It's another one of our small. We wanted to make these kind of roll and card games, basically games which had like 60 to 70 cards or 80 cards and one die. So they're kind of like roll and write games, but where we're using the cards to do a tableau. And we've made a few games in this line. It's kind of the first one we finished, and it'd be good to pitch it to some more people, I guess. I don't really have some great images, unfortunately. And then there's a whole bunch of games still in progress. I mean, people have watched the stream before. There's this Hitman game I'm working on with Dave, which is kind of like combining an app with trying to emulate the original Hitman games. We're a really cool dice Euro game with Mandela, which I think we're making some good progress. If Mandela's still in the chat, I don't know. Which I'm really happy about. Theo, we're working on a Sky Pirates game. Theo, of course, already is already no stranger to Sky Pirates with his previous games, but but anyway, there's sort of a bunch of stuff which I'm still really happy that is still kind of in progress. And actually, the year looking back on 2020, sometimes it's been difficult to be creative, but actually looking in the aggregate, I think it's still been a pretty good year. And again, it's always generally through working with other people. Tony Boydell, we've got a couple of really cool prototypes together. Tony is just this incredible, you leave him with an idea and he goes off and just sort of like designs the whole thing. It's quite incredible. And we have two games which I think speak very much to our own interests. And actually Iron Almanac is kind of almost like a roll and write in the Snowdonia universe, except there's no writing, it's a card-based game. But I think that will be, I'm still hopeful that, we met recently and have some new ideas for how to push those both forward. And the other kind of cool thing here is this my first digital game, which is a collaboration with Arnold, who I've been sort of shouting out. And this is called Card Crawl Adventure. Here's one of his early games called Card Crawl, which is a solitaire-based kind of card game. And this is going to be based, I think, in the same sort of universe, but it's sort of a roguelike card game. And you might notice a 3x3 grid, which sort of came from me, some inspiration from Monumental and things like that. But we've had a lot of, Arnold's done so much work on it, and I'm really grateful for all he's done on it. And I'm trying to keep up and come up with new things to put in the game. It's been a really interesting development process, really different. There's a lot of work to implement new things in coding, but there's always lots of interesting decisions that permeate every aspect of the design. So I'm really hopeful. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I think, I'm confident that we'll get to the end. It's just still going to be quite a bit of work next year. But the other thing I wanted to say is, and almost related back to science, is that you only see the successes. I should also note there are about 18. I looked quickly on my computer. There are 18 folders, of which I started, maybe made a first prototype, maybe even play tested once or twice, but didn't go any further than that. So there's plenty of kind of quote unquote failures from the year, sort of in the interest of openness. So yeah, not everything is a golden gem or something when you come up with it, and things are abandoned all the time. But who knows if you come back to them in the future, I guess. Yeah, and other things kind of looking back on the year, well, obviously is streaming. Just huge thank you to all of you who've supported the stream and just by watching. For me, one of the hardest things of the year was kind of being in not a new city. I knew the city, but I don't know a lot of people here in Prague. Obviously, we're stuck indoors a lot, and having the ability to kind of connect with other people, once or twice a week has been really amazing. And it's just a really, really nice community. I say it all the time. I'm a broken record, but no, but really thank you all. And yeah, it's been really exciting. And I've even done like one specific playing game stream. I'm interested in maybe doing a few more of those. I'm not sure right now. I actually, you can't see, and it's not going to be very interesting, but I have 2 desks here, one that the computer is on, and I have another desk actually that this tree is on. But I've switched them just this afternoon. I would always have my computer over here, and whenever I had to stream, I'd have to move everything to where it is to get this kind of like way that the light can work. But I've now completely changed, the desks and things so that I can be permanently set up so a little less to sort of set up if I want to stream. So maybe I'll, when I kind of feel like I have an hour or so to play some games, I might do that a little bit more. But I'm really hopeful, like it's been, this is my 17th stream. I'm hoping that, I'll be able to keep doing it. And yeah, it's one of those things that obviously I have a lot of time for in the pandemic when you're just at home. But I hope I can continue it even when things kind of get a bit, back to normal, I guess, because I've really enjoyed it. The other thing, sort of a bit old in a way, is that I got up to 59 posts on Design 100, which is this game design blog, which I sort of managed, thankfully with great input from a really amazing bunch of game designers who would answer a question every week in 100 words or less. And up until April was the last post. I got up to question 59. And yeah, that was basically one every week for, over a year, which, in hindsight, it's both something I'm very proud of. I'm glad I could stick with it for as long as I did. And I think there were some really great answers. And I'd love to find a way to kind of like revisit the content or like find new ways to show it to people, because I think there's a lot of really interesting like tidbits and insights, and I'd really encourage anyone to go and check it out. I think there's a lot of really great I think there's just some great things, and hopefully they're relatively easy to read, because each of the answers is quite short and snappy. So it's a Design 100 being a number.org. Yeah, but it's also sort of one of the disappointments in that I think once the kind of the bulk of the lockdowns happened in April, it's sort of funny because you would almost think that, like, oh wow, you have time. It's it's a blog project, you can do it. But for whatever reason, I just didn't. I didn't feel like doing it that much as kind of the world changed around me, and it was one of the things that kind of got lost along the way. So I'm not sure whether it's something I'll bring back. I feel like streaming has taken that place in my life, but who knows? It could come back. I hope the website. I'll definitely maintain the website and hope to keep it up as long as possible. Oh, thanks very much, Jay. It's really kind of you. Yeah. Well, I'm glad they're in some way useful, and yeah, I'm glad that it's great if viewers are feeling like that they can connect as well. For me, it's a really important thing for me. It's very meaningful. So yeah, that's great. And thanks for saying that. Yeah, so I guess kind of roughly wrapping up. Personal highlights. Working on my first digital game has been really fun, and just and Arnold's just great to work with, and I very look forward to meeting him in person and going to Berlin once we can travel, because with actually being able to really connect for something where we've never actually met in person. I've been really happy, and just work in the kind of learning different challenges and different possibilities and things has been really cool. So I really enjoyed that. Oh, thanks for all the really kind things about the Design 100. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see me answering all the curious questions. Yeah, maybe I can do that on a stream. I will take that note. I now have my notes a little bit closer to me. Design 100 answers on stream. But yeah, maybe I can do them one per stream or something. I could take the next question. That could be something fun. And streaming, just really great highlight. The adventure games I mentioned in the previous stream, they've now passed 250,000 copies sold in the German editions across the different scenarios, but just in German, which is amazing. It's the highest selling game I've certainly ever had a hand in designing. which is really great. Sort of a bit hard to believe in a way, but that's really amazing. And Monumental also has been really well received, as I said before, and seeing it on a lot of top 10 lists now is like for a game that's sort of been in my life for such a long time. It's really gratifying to kind of see it fit with people. I also got to sign a game with Ravensburger. I won't tell you which one because I probably can't. But that was like that for me is like a personal, like Ravensburger is one of the companies that you always sort of meet with, especially at Nuremberg. They have this massive booth. I think they have the largest booth in all of Nuremberg. And like the quality that they put out in the games and the kind of that, the standing they have in Germany and around the world. And they have a great development team. I really enjoyed meeting with them for a really long time and finally getting to sign a game with them. And the moment where I got the news in Nuremberg in like February this year was a really, really amazing moment. And yeah, just that moment where they're like, yeah, we want to sign the game. And actually all the process of developing and working with them this year has been really, really great. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how that might go. Also, I found in the times when we weren't locked down, there's been a really great little design group kind of formed, or that we've tried to do it with Doug at this Board Game Cafe meeting every couple of weeks, and generally I think it was going pretty well actually. Obviously, it's been a bit disrupted with everything, but that's been a really nice thing. And the last thing I'd sort of say is I kind of got back on the horse with the tabletop mentorship program this year. I had 2 mentees in the kind of last quarter of this year. I'd done it in some previous years, but sort of hadn't for a little while. And I was able to, I really enjoyed it this time. I think I got, there were a couple of things that really helped. I think in previous years, I had some problems with time zones. Definitely had a few people in the States or even in Australia, and finding like times that worked was always difficult. And for whatever reason, like this time, it just really worked. Had both people were in Europe, and we just had a set time once every 2 weeks, and I really enjoyed our chats. And I hope it was helpful, but for me, actually, it was really enjoyable as well. So it's something that I hope I will keep getting involved with. And I think, fixing this time zone problem, and also only having 2. There was once I had 3 mentees, which was, I think, just not a good idea from my point of view, because then it starts becoming like a bit too much like a chore, unfortunately. And I mean, on the flip side, I mean, it's easy to kind of focus on all the positives, and that's a great thing to do. But again, in the kind of open idea of being open, or give a bit more of a realistic picture, there obviously have been this is failures and disappointments, I should say, sort of like apart from COVID, which obviously is really impacted upon the year. And it kind of related to that, there's been a lot of delays in a lot of projects, that completely expected, but it's always a bit tough when you've been working on a game for a really long time and you just have to like wait a little bit longer. There's a lot of waiting in the game design profession, but that's fine. And yeah, having games returned, had a game returned after being on contract for a couple of years. Another game is kind of currently in limbo. I'm really, really hope we have a meeting early January with a new publisher that I'm really hoping is going to sign it. It's a game that is one of the games I'm most personally proud of, and I think it could be really successful. And it was looking, it was all perfect. Theo knows the game because I actually pitched this game. Theo was the one who signed the game originally, which should give you a clue of maybe who was originally published with. But but that publisher was acquired by another publisher, so now that game's in limbo. I'm really, really hopeful that it's going to find a home. And also, there've been plenty of games that we've had to sign. This is the first year, which a very common thing has been said, we need to sign an addendum to a contract because we said we would publish it within 3 years, but now we're about to hit that deadline. Can you sign another year extension? So yeah, there are definitely plenty of games that have been, under contract for like now 3 or 4 years, which can be, it could just be tough sometimes, but you just have to, you just have to hope. Yeah, no, thanks, Theo. Yeah, I hope so too. We're close. We're close. I can tell you later. I obviously, for me, it's been a bit of a change. I missed the Cambridge designing crew, the kind of like our weekly playtest meetups. Were a mainstay in my life for 8 or 9 years, and haven't been able to do that. We've tried to do it in Discord and Tabletop Simulator, and when it has worked, it's been nice, but it's not exactly the same. So that's been a bit tough. I talked about Design 100. For me, I'm not sure if I would call it a failure. Maybe I'm a bit disappointed in myself But I think, you know, given everything, that's just how things work. And I think the last thing for me that I've struggled to, there's a couple of games which I haven't, there's one game in particular that I knew last year around this time that this was the game I was going to work on in 2020, because I believe in the concept. I like the game. It's going to be a variable power card game, something like a follow-up to Elysium in a way, not exactly, but it's in that same weight. And it's a game, that style of game I personally enjoy a lot. And I was so happy to be able to design a game in that kind of style of game, but I find it hard to prioritize making those games because I think they take a certain amount of time. Obviously, you're trying to make lots of cards. I want to make something really good because it's exactly the type of game that I enjoy. So I have sort of high expectations for myself, and I've really struggled to even begin on it this year, unfortunately. Actually, the last few days I've even started doing a little bit more work on it, but that has been a bit of a struggle. And again, amongst everything this year, that's pretty normal. But it's I think one of the things that, like, it's great that things are being successful, but you start having projects which are kind of work. You have to just keep working on them, and it does leave less time to kind of sit around and like design and do whatever you like. So I hope that I guess was a bit of a failure or disappointment that I didn't kind of make more progress with that. But it is the number one priority for me going into the next year in terms of new projects. Yeah, and I guess well, what's next in 2021? Well, I would tune into the next stream where I'm gonna sort of look to the new year, think about what I'm looking forward to, how do I think about planning as a game designer, things like that. Yeah, that's coming up next time. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, so that was was a bit of a long ramble, but hopefully encapsulates kind of my year as a game designer. But I mean, the overall point has been, I've been really fortunate and just really, it's been, that's a problem. So, no, I've been really fortunate, and it's the success of a few projects has really meant that I could think about being close to at least a fully part-time designer, which I haven't really been able to consider before this year. Yeah, so I'll drink some water. It's like that moment where you've you finish a talk or something, and yeah, I don't know if this method of streaming if it works for people, if you like the kind of presentation style, if it's easy to have something to read. I'm not sure, but hopefully. As a light kind of thing, the other thing I wanted to show off, my main Christmas present this year was I wanted to actually, both Teresa and I, we wanted to kind of start new hobbies a little bit, because I think when you're sort of inside all the time, and for me, like game making or even playing games is like more and more like work. It's not exactly work, but I was sort of thinking, it'd be good to get a hobby. So I decided to take up knitting. This is my start. I knitted. Like when I was a kid at school, I think we were taught in one term, but I haven't knit for over 20 years or something, and I didn't even know what I was doing back then anyway. So I'm starting from scratch. This is my first attempt, at the basic knitting stitch or whatever. I'm probably just going to make a square, I guess. At the moment, there's no pattern or anything, but that was, so that was kind of, it's been my fun kind of thing over the last few days, yeah, so. It's random non-game design related point. Yeah, so I mean that's it for about nutting. I hope you're not thinking about nutting. A knitted board game. That's it. Yeah. I mean, considering how long it's taken me to do this, I like making new prototypes, I think it's going to take a lot longer. But I mean, well, I mean, I think the point is to make it as different from games as possible, and I like the kind of it, it's not with a computer, and it's sort of using your hands, and yeah, there's some cool kind of, but it's also kind of in some ways it's still a little bit mathematical and the patterns and things like that. Let's do it. Yeah, to discuss ones. Yeah, so I've read actually that apparently everyone starts with scarves, but that actually they're not necessarily the best thing to recommend because they just take really long time. Actually, yeah, I was recommended to do a hat actually as the first thing. Obviously, I'm not doing a hat right now. I'm just practicing, but yeah, I'm looking. And if anyone has good resources, if you are knitting in your own life, I would definitely look. I'm looking for resources. Oh, you started playing disc golf. Oh, really cool, Rasmus. Seth Jaffe, developer at TMG, is an avid disc golfer. Yeah. It must be cold though. Is it like indoors or something where you're playing? Different hobbies are always a good thing. Yeah, definitely. And can recommend that as an extra outdoor hobby. Yeah, maybe I'll check it. I played some ultimate frisbee when I was at university, so I have some basic skill with a frisbee. Yeah, I'm not sure if they play disc golf here in the Czech Republic. I'll definitely look it up. It's a bit cold. I'm not sure how much I'd be wanting to stay outside, but Rasmus being Danish, you're probably used to it. I'm not sure if you saw. I'm not sure if I haven't talked to you, but you maybe you missed the stream where I was doing GeoGuessr and we were in Denmark, and you would have laughed at how terrible my knowledge of Denmark was, or how bad how badly I did basically. Robert said, I've just started following tutorials to make games for Board Game Arena. Okay, cool, interesting, but possibly a bit close to work to count as a hobby because you're a programmer in your day job, right? Yeah, but that's really cool. I think that would be cool to check out. Like I part of me would like to learn how to do that, but yeah, I think I've got enough on my plate game-wise as possible. Yes, you are reminding us the Danish Vikings. So you really are just playing out. It's the only stream that is like Matt plays game. So it's probably like 2 back, I think. Yeah, so I was doing GeoGuessr in different countries, and a few people from chat were helping me. And maybe actually this is going to turn into, I might do some GeoGuessr after this. I had the dream to stream up to the point where Ross starts. So Ross actually isn't streaming tonight, but he's appearing on the Brothers Murph live stream, and I wanted to stream for long enough that that I would be able to, that we'd be able to go and raid him as a sort of weird thing. I'm not sure if I'm not expecting anybody to hang around because it'll but if anyone wants some fun, sort of relaxing GeoGuessr kind of fun at the end, then I might do a little bit of that. Yeah. So let me know if you're taking up new hobbies or new things you're doing. That's really cool. Robertson and I as OS Deb, so BGA is all languages I don't know. Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Do you find it interesting to learn a new language, or is it kind of frustrating because you're so used to being so fluent in something else and you have to learn how to do it? Yeah, it'd be interesting. Theo's started doing indoor bouldering, but not that much since the beginning of the pandemic. Yes, I actually started doing a little bit of indoor bouldering as well. I had my housemates in England were avid boulderers, and there actually was a bouldering place like a 5-minute walk from our apartment. So maybe I will. Yeah, it could be something to look at. I wouldn't be surprised if there. I mean, there must be one in Prague somewhere, but of course, right now it's a little bit hard. But I am looking forward to getting into some sports. It's certainly something I've kind of missed this year generally. And now that I'm sort of more relocated in one place, I feel like I always enjoyed team sports a lot. So it's something I've missed, and I would like to start. I wanted to play floorball, which is kind of like indoor hockey with a plastic ball here, because I used to play field hockey in Australia, so I kind of have a bit of familiarity with it. But yeah, it's a team sport, so you have to kind of be in one place long enough to be able to do it. Great, it's a plan for Brussels. We'll do some bouldering. Yeah, so that's probably it for my kind of recap of the year. Thanks very much for everyone kind of for hanging around until then. I think I might do a little bit of geoguessing. There's a new battle royale kind of thing where you can what am I saying? Where you kind of have to like stay in as many rounds as possible. Do let me know if anyone's got some questions or anything like before I sort of move off from the kind of recap and games. Although of course when I'm playing, just feel free to drop questions in the chat, whatever you feel like. But yeah, maybe we'll have one go at some geoguessing as just a kind of way to yes, relax, sort of to, well, not de-stress, but something a little bit different. Let me see how I can do this. Okay. I probably should change what I am doing. Okay, so that's GeoGuessr, so that's working. Yeah, I'm not sure. For those people who are more used to streaming, like, do you edit your stream info like midstream if you're changing the board, is changing what you're doing? Because I guess that helps people see what you're doing. But I'll GeoGuessr. Okay, so that's updated. Cool. All right, let's do some geoguessing. And in honor of Theo being around, maybe I can try France. Or I understand Belgium's probably a little bit easier, but it's always a bit of fun when chat can help me out. Yeah, what I like doing was the countries thing. So let's try France, because I feel like maybe that I'll have an attempt. So I was doing 10 minutes before, but I feel like that's a little bit too long. So I'm going to try 5 minutes, and we'll see just how terribly I do. I'm usually quite bad. And also, the funny thing about streaming while doing GeoGuessr is there's like this little lag in the chat, which means that, if I'm scanning past something and somebody sees something on the map, then everyone's like, it's there, and I see it like 2 seconds afterwards, and I've already panned past it. So let's see how we go. So it's yeah. So there's five locations, maximum 25,000 points. Let's go. Let's do some geoguessing. Okay, excellent. I see a Rue Gaston Baquillon. That's where I can do some horrible French accents. Okay, we're in French town. Not that exciting. What's there? That's an avenue. Some roundabouts. What a surprise. Debussy Champagne, Commerce Plateau. Okay, it doesn't necessarily help me, but I feel like going towards the place that it was suggesting. Oh, I'm also going to do my trick of always making a guess, because in other geoguessing, I get so I don't realize what the time is, and then I don't make any guess, which is like automatically bad points, obviously. Oops, there's a notice board here. Oh, here we go. Juvisy. Okay, I feel like I should. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, yeah. No, I found it lots of fun actually. Juvisy, Theo. Do you know at least what that must be a particular municipality or something, maybe. Oh gosh. Okay, we're not exactly seeing anything that's very. No, Theo's got nothing. Great. We're screwed. Oh wait, there's a bus stop. Sometimes bus stops can be useful. Oh, okay. Well, this looks Juvisy sur Orge. Okay, so like sur is like on, so Orge is maybe a. Forgive me that I'm very bad at geo. Excellent. Okay, I don't know. I'm gonna just have a very quick look at like sort of a top thing and just see if I see Juvisy, because it looks like it could be a sort of a largish town, maybe. No, I feel like we're a bit off the way here. All right, let's keep looking around. Let's see. What do we think down this way? Yeah, tricky things with these. Okay, so we're definitely in this town called Juvisy, but we just have no idea where it is. So I feel like we have to like get out of town somehow, then hopefully see a like a note of like a route or something. But I don't know. I'm not that confident. Okay. Come on. Or even like the name of just another. Oh gosh, it's just endless roundabouts and endless. Yeah. Can I get down there? No, I can't. Oh wow, this is just this is an absolute maze. It must be a pretty large town though, right? No, we're on a roundabout. What a surprise. We're in France after all. Okay, minute and a half. I'm not sure if we're I'm sure at some point I'm just gonna have to sort of go like just guess or like start to just look at the map. Wow, this is quite an impressive roundabout. I wonder how many times I'm going to say that during this stream. Could the number on the card plates help? Usually they're blanked out, unfortunately. But I'll keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Rasmus. Good point. Good point. Oh gosh, I'm once again in the middle of nowhere. And look, another roundabout. Wow. Okay, I am very, very screwed. What's that? I can't tell. All right. It's not gonna be great. Just let me out. Let me out of your damn town. Oh. Okay. Now we're just at the hope of just finding Juvisy on a map somewhere. Let's see. Come on. If anyone sees it. Juvisy. I feel like it shouldn't be the south. I feel like I know the south slightly better. But again, I have no real idea. Oh, it was basically a suburb of Paris. Juvisy-sur-Orge. All right. Sounds more south or central than north. Well, yeah, that was a bit of a rough start. I guess maybe I should have known that it might, if it was like a big enough town that I haven't heard of, like just guessed that it's in the outskirts of Paris or something like that. Okay. Oh, all right. This one's a little bit different. Definitely not in Paris anymore. Barely on a road, I would say. Are we on the coast? Could be. But we need to hit civilization first. It doesn't look like civilization. Okay, well, there's... Oh, all right. Okay, D843. All right. D158. Do we have any... D158 Alzon. Thanks, Theo. my one help, and you're just gonna ditch me? That's all right. Have a nice evening. Oh god, this is I can't even go. It's funny, you sometimes get to places where you just can't go any further. Wow, we've reached the edge of Google Maps, apparently. I wonder how the numbering in France works, because we know the name of the... I'm guessing D roads are just so... But how easy it is... I mean, this literally can just like... I mean, I guess the closer to Paris, maybe? This does seem... And like, does D158 come off D15? Is that how it works? Let's see if I can get an example of it. 6-8. I feel like I could be searching quite a while for... And I I don't have much thing to make me think that the number, like the core number, but we know we're on D158 or close enough to D158, so that's good. Good. All right, let's keep looking. So we're near Alzon, D158. Just would like to see another. Well, we're not. It's not very mountainous, is it? It's like distant mountains. No help from chat. My one French friend has abandoned me. Curse you, Theo. No, I'm just joking. Oh, okay. Whoops. Slipped into a place now. Where are we? No, this is Blandas place. Okay. So a small little village. But I'm hoping somewhere there's going to be like one of these great signs that's going to tell me, oh, okay, here we go. Oh, that's a bit annoying. D113 and 158. But I want to see if I can see this because I feel like that is a kind of important, possibly important destination. No, that's Alzon again. Okay. D113. Mont Dardier. Alzon. Le Vegan. Right. Let's see if there's more to be gleaned this way. Oh, maybe there's going to be a map here. Hold on. I see a small map. Can I zoom? Not really. One more ahead. Oh, it's so close. Oh. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. This is not. It's not going so well. my France is not good enough, I'm afraid. Thanks for everyone who stuck around through my absolutely terrible performance at French GeoGuessr. All right. Oh, a roundabout. What a surprise. What will we glean from you, roundabout? Oh, there's a, okay. It's a chateau. Okay, interesting. I don't know, should we follow the chateau? Oh, here we go. This looks like a good sign. Well, not really. Clearly, CU West. Okay, what about this bus sign? Can we tell from you? Ile-de-France. I feel like I should know where Ile-de-France, or like the region that Ile-de-France is in. I can't for the life of me remember. I feel like I've been there before. Centreville-les-Berguères. Montbelice Notre Dame. I guess there's like lots of different Notre Dames around France. I'm guessing it's not the Notre Dame. Do my normal, put a guess in the middle of the country to make sure I don't forget. I mean, should I guess in Paris? It doesn't quite look like Paris, does it? What's the name of the... What do we think? Oh gosh. Okay, let's keep going. Maybe here. Hotel de Ville. What's this? Oh no, still Hotel de Ville. Oh, maybe let's go down. Follow the signs. When in doubt, follow the signs. Oh, hold on. This looks like maybe there's something. Nope. Stuck again. Oh no, run around about again. It's not what we wanted. We want to get out of this town. Deary, deary me. Hotel de Ville, I feel like that's where we were. All these roundabouts just turn me around and make me go back to myself. Oh, maybe here. Hold on. Hold on. Bouchon. Bouchon, maybe? I feel like this is where I was. It is, isn't it? Oh, no. No. Failure. I almost feel like just giving up. I don't know. They must. I'm not sure if there are like skills or something that I'm just. Yeah, I guess I'm still learning. But really. Oh, bins. I know bins can be useful sometimes. Because you can see. Can't really see anything there. Oh, sorry. Well, it says Paris, so should I just guess Paris again? And just hope that I'm somewhere kind of in the outskirts of Paris. Des Marinières. I feel like I've seen Marinières a few times. Okay, so Des Marinières is, I think, the correct. But I have no idea where Des Marinières actually is. So yes, could be. I'm just going for the if in doubt, guess it's a suburb of Paris. There you go. So I was right. Just always guess as a suburb of Paris or outskirts of Paris, and you'll do well. Okay. 2 more to go, then we'll be out of my misery, and that might do me for the stream today. Okay, we really are in the middle of nowhere. Which direction to go when you're in the middle of nowhere is always a good question. Oops. Maybe this is still the main road for now. No. Okay. In the countryside, not many signs to speak of, I'm afraid. I'm just trusting that I'm on the main road. That might be correct. All right. At least there's a main intersection. Hold on. In front of this sign. Burn. So D109. Okay. Can work with that. And D131. 109 and 131. It's be easy to find. I have absolutely no idea where I am. Okay, again, put a guess in so you don't miss that. A lot of 9s down here. So maybe the first number is somewhat because I would guess maybe you start with the ones close to. Okay, wait. What was that? Are we 131? Close. 138. 131 or 109? Excuse me. Okay, we're on the border there. It's not going to be. Yes, it doesn't seem to be much. Maybe I should look up what the rules are for like the numbering of the roads in France, because there doesn't seem to be any sort of discernible, rhyme or reason to it, I would say. What are we? 131. 137. Come on. Yep. Gone all over the country. Of course, the problem is I may be too zoomed out to even see it. T112, 131 and 109. Sigh. Yeah, so there's. Well, I think we've worked out that my knowledge of anything French is just far too poor. So where am I guessing currently? Yeah, I'll guess just somewhere in the middle. Almost depressed. It's tough. All right, let's finish it off. Oh gosh, it might be somewhere I could even learn the name of the town fairly quickly. I'm feeling better about this. We're in civilization, so that's a good start. A good start indeed. Feels like I should be able to get the name of the town, and the town looks big-ish. Okay. So we're in. Oh, okay. Well, okay, that's a good start. I know where Versailles is at least. Okay. I can work with that. So the train station. What's on here? Or maybe Ile-de-France is just all. Yeah. Bois d'Arcy. Okay, so I feel like we. All right, but at least I'll start by guessing kind of near enough to Versailles. Maybe you're going to see something like Bois d'Arcy. Oh, here we go. Hold on. So what was this sign saying? Feel it's getting better. Okay, so and La Paz. So we are to the west of Bois d'Arcy and La Paz de Lac. Just looking to see if I can see another. Okay, but that's a good. Feels like releasing the right rough thing. Okay. So let's find the name of this town. Carrefour. Oh, maybe it's Central Saint Quentin. Is there a Saint Quentin? Anywhere around here? Saint Quentin. Blue. Saint Quentin. And it's like a largest city. So it feels like it should be it feels like it should be pretty easy to see, I guess. Maybe I'll just do a quick go out and see if I can see a Saint Quentin. Okay, new. Okay, so maybe it's called that because it's on the road of Saint Quentin. Is there a trapeze somewhere? I feel like it was just luck that I even saw. So it has to be. Trapeze has to be over here somewhere. All right, I think we still need the name of the. Guyancourt and Bois d'Arcy. Yeah, so Quarter-Saint and Monty. Oh, okay, so this is probably Montigny-le-Bretonneux. Oh, here we go. Oh, all right, here we are. So we're here somewhere. And we're in the kind of like the part that is, we're sort of near the train station. Oh, okay. I think we're somewhere over here because that's where I mean, it's not exactly that's where we ended up, but it's probably quite close to this. Hey, success. Oh gosh, it took like 5 attempts, but to get something vaguely close. Oh, whew. Well, I'm not sure if that was the relaxing end of the stream that I was hoping for, but thanks for hanging in there till the end. That was well, I've got a new medal for France. Great. Okay, not the best performance, but but I made up for it. Actually, it's an area I have actually been to kind of Versailles around that area a little bit, so maybe I got a bit lucky to finally get something I sort of had seen before. Yeah. Whew, well, with that, I think I'm done for the day. But yeah, thanks to everyone who hung around for some less than optimal geoguessing this time, I'm afraid. I don't think I'm going to be going back to France without a bit of training. But I think I'll have a look, see if there's anybody we could raid. We could go and see Ian again. Is any other suggestions for some raiding? Does anyone know anyone that would recommend? Okay, so yeah, maybe we'll go to Ian and say hi. But otherwise, thank you everyone for hanging around. Have a great rest of 2020. Only a few days to go, and a nice New Year's, however that was, and hope you're well and safe. And I'll see you. I'll be back on Friday at my normal time. First stream of 2021. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yes, it'll actually be the first on Friday. So yeah, I'll be streaming New Year's Day, normal time, 5 p.m. Central European time. So yeah, see you then. So yeah, let's go and raid in and see what he's doing. He's playing. Oh, he's playing some Under Falling Skies, I think. So I will. We'll get going. And yeah, take care. And well, see you next time. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.